The wedding was grand, the kind that left guests whispering about its beauty long after the last dance. Precious, a beautiful, gorgeous woman dressed in flowing white lace, held onto Daniel's arm, her husband-to-be, her heart swelling with joy. But amidst the laughter and music, Mama Grace sat in the front row, stone-faced, her eyes dark with disapproval. She didn't clap when they exchanged vows. She didn't smile when they were pronounced husband and wife. She didn't hide her disappointment. Mama Grace is the mother of Daniel, and Daniel is her only son, who she wants the best for him, but she doesn't mind the price she had to pay for it. Long before this day, Mama Grace had warned Daniel. "This girl is not wife material," she had hissed. "She will ruin you." She even went as far as handpicking a woman for him, a quiet, obedient girl from the village who knew how to respect elders. But Daniel refused. He loved Precious, and no one, not even his mother, could change that. Precious is a good woman who is kind, loving, and charming. Still, Mama Grace wasn't one to accept defeat. If she couldn't stop the wedding, she could make Precious regret ever marrying her son. 2 weeks after the ceremony, she arrived at their doorstep, suitcase in hand. "I am your mother," she declared. "A mother must be with her son." Precious's smile faltered as she welcomed her in, unaware that this was the beginning of a nightmare. From that day forward, Mama Grace made it her mission to turn the house into a battleground. Precious had won the wedding, but Mama Grace would make sure she lost everything else. It started with little things, an insult wrapped in a smile, a chore disguised as a lesson. "Precious, you call this food? No wonder my son is losing weight." Mama Grace would sneer after every meal, pushing her plate aside. If Precious tried to defend herself, she would sigh dramatically. "You young girls don't like corrections. In my time, wives knew how to keep their homes." Every morning, before the sun rose, Mama Grace would bang on Precious's door. A good wife wakes before her husband. Lazy women sleep late. She would force Precious to scrub the floors, cook elaborate meals, and iron Daniel's clothes, even when he wasn't home. Precious tried to tell Daniel, but he only shrugged. "She's just my mother. Respect her." At first, Precious endured. But then, she started feeling sick. A deep, unexplainable weakness crept into her bones. Her stomach twisted in pain after every meal, especially when Mama Grace cooks. Her limbs felt heavy, her energy drained. One evening, she confided in her best friend Chica. "It's like I'm dying slowly." Chica frowned. "Precious, have you considered that this isn't normal?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "What if she's doing something to you? Spiritually?" A cold shiver ran down Precious's spine. The thought had crossed her mind, but she had dismissed it. Now she wasn't so sure. "No, I don't think she is capable of that," Precious said, as she was doubting her reply to Chica. It's been months. Daniel and Precious seemed to be getting closer and closer, even though everything she had tried to separate them wasn't working. She didn't stop there. She did the most dangerous thing she could think of. The path to the witch doctor's shrine was narrow and twisted, lined with trees that seemed to whisper in the wind. Mama Grace moved quickly, her heart pounding with determination. She had tried everything to break Precious's hold on her son, words, manipulation, even making Precious's life miserable. But nothing worked. If her son wouldn't listen to reason, she would make him. The house was dark, lit only by flickering candles. The air smelled of burnt herbs and something more sinister. The witch doctor, an old man with piercing eyes, studied her silently before speaking. "You seek power over another," he said. "But all power comes at a cost." Mama Grace didn't flinch. "I want 2 things," she said. "A charm that will make my son listen only to me and ignore that woman, and a curse that will make Precious barren. She must never bear children for my son." The witch doctor chuckled, shaking his head. "Meddling with fate brings consequences." "I don't care." Her voice was firm. "Do it." With a knowing smirk, the witch doctor mixed herbs, powders, and a strange black liquid into a small calabash. "This will do both. Put it in his food, and he will obey you. Burn this at midnight, and her womb will be sealed." Clutching the items, Mama Grace hurried home. That night, while everyone slept, she placed small charms around the house, hiding them under the bed in the kitchen, even near Precious's clothes. By morning, the battle had truly begun. At first it was little things, whispers in the night when no one was speaking, shadows shifting in the corners of her eyes. Precious would turn expecting to see someone, but the room would be empty. Then came the fear. A deep, unshakable dread that clung to her like a second skin whenever Mama Grace was near. The woman's presence felt heavier, suffocating. Precious would catch her staring, her lips moving as if she were speaking to someone unseen. The nightmares began soon after. Every night, Precious found herself trapped in darkness. A faceless woman looking over her, cold hands tightening around her throat. She would wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, only to find Mama Grace's door slightly open, as if she had been watching. Daniel had changed too. He no longer laughed with her, no longer held her close. He barely even looked at her. Whenever Mama Grace, her mother, spoke, he nodded blankly, agreeing without question. It was as if something had drained the life from him, leaving only a shadow of the man she married. Desperate, Precious turned to prayer, but every time she knelt, murmuring words of faith, a slow, deliberate knocking echoed from the walls. It started softly, then grew louder, surrounding her, mocking her. One night, as she whispered, "God help me," the knocking stopped. A voice, low and chilling, whispered back, "You are not welcome here." Months passed, and Precious's fears became reality. She wasn't getting pregnant. At first, Daniel didn't seem too concerned. "It will happen when it's time," he said. But Mama Grace was different. Every morning she would sigh loudly, shaking her head as Precious walked past. "A woman's worth is in her children. A fruitless tree is only good for firewood." The words cut deep, but Precious held her pain inside. She prayed, she hoped, but nothing changed. Then Daniel started changing after some months. He barely touched her anymore, his patience thinning with each passing day. "Maybe you should see a doctor," he finally said one night, his tone cold. Precious swallowed the lump in her throat. It wasn't her. It couldn't be her. But she realized that this is not the man she got married to, and out of fear and desperation, she visited a hospital. The doctor ran tests, examined her, then smiled. "You are perfectly healthy. There's no medical reason you shouldn't conceive." The relief was short-lived. If she was fine, then why wasn't she getting pregnant? Chica, her best friend, suggested something else. "Precious, this isn't ordinary. Let's see someone. Someone who understands spiritual matters." Precious hesitated but agreed. They went to the church to see a pastor. Pastor Edmund, a middle-aged man with piercing eyes, listened silently before speaking. "Someone close to you has locked your womb. Until they release it, you will never bear a child. That is what the Holy Spirit has told me." Precious's heart pounded. She already knew the answer before asking. "Who?" The pastor looked straight into her eyes. "Your mother-in-law is the cause of your problem." Precious wasn't yet ready to accept and believe that Mama Grace is the cause of her not getting pregnant. Chica tried her best to get her to be cautious, but Precious had to be sure. She had to see it with her own eyes. One evening, she noticed Mama Grace slipping out of the house, glancing around as if making sure no one was watching. Precious's heart pounded as she followed at a distance, careful to stay hidden. The path led deep into the outskirts of town, where the air felt heavier, charged with something unseen. She stopped behind a tree when she saw the dim glow of a fire ahead. Mama Grace stood before the witch doctor, her voice low but urgent, in the witch doctor's house. "She's still there, still standing between me and my son. Why isn't she gone yet?" The witch doctor chuckled. "Patience. Her womb is already tied. She will never bear a child unless the charm is broken." Precious's stomach twisted. It was true. It was all true. "I can't believe this." Rage boiled inside her, but fear held her back. She turned and ran, her breath shaky, her heart in her throat. Back home, she confronted Daniel. "I saw her, Daniel. I heard her. Your mother cursed me. How could she?" Daniel's expression darkened. "Precious, stop this nonsense. My mother would never do such a thing to you." Precious felt alone. "Why can't you believe me? I know she is your mother, and I respect that, but you should see what I saw this night. Your mother is a witch cursing our life to be this way." "Hey, don't call my mother a witch. And who are you to call her a witch, where I don't know why you aren't making me a father yet, so don't blame that on my mother," Daniel said. Precious's hands trembled in fear and sorrow. He wouldn't believe her. Tears burned in her eyes, but she wiped them away. If Daniel wouldn't fight for her, she would fight for herself. The next day, she packed a small bag and left. If darkness had a face, then light had one too. It was time to seek help from the only source she thought would help her. Precious went to the church of Pastor Edmund again to ask for his help. Precious knelt before the Pastor Edmund, desperation in her eyes. "Please, I need to break this curse. I need your prayers." Pastor Edmund studied her, then sighed. "What has been done to you is powerful, but it can be undone with prayers if only you believe. However, once the curse is broken, everything Mama Grace has done will return to her in fold." Precious's heart pounded. Would she be able to handle that? Pastor Edmund handed her a prayer point to start with. Precious was not much of a prayerful person, but she was determined and willing to pay the sacrifice to save herself and her husband. To be honest, this prayer wouldn't be an easy one, because the forces at play will do anything to hold the highest power against you. "Take this, Oliver Ole. Rub the oil on your stomach each morning and evening. I will pray with you from my own end. The moment the curse breaks, you will know. Only prayer would save us here." Precious nodded, determined. She followed every instruction carefully. Every night she goes to another room in the house to pray and protect her family from evil forces. Each time she prays as hard as she could, she feels something lift off her shoulders, as if invisible chains were breaking. By the 5th night, she felt different, stronger, lighter. The fear that had lived inside her since Mama Grace moved in began to fade. By the 7th night, something changed. After her prayers that night, she rubbed the oil on her stomach again. A sharp pain shot through her, but it wasn't unbearable. It was cleansing. At that moment, far away in her room, Mama Grace jolted awake, clutching her chest as an unseen force weighed down on her. The darkness she had sent out was coming back. Mama Grace sat on the edge of her bed, drenched in sweat, deep in thought. The room felt heavy, suffocating. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, and whispers slithered through the air like unseen serpents. She thought to herself, "What is this I am feeling? I hope I am not been haunted." At first, she ignored the whisper, blaming it on exhaustion. But then the sickness began. Sharp pains twisted her stomach, and no medicine seemed to help. Food tasted like ashes, and sleep became a battlefield of nightmares. One night, she woke to find Daniel standing by her bed, his eyes vacant, his lips moving as if controlled by something unseen. "What have you done, Mother?" he whispered. His voice was hollow, eerie. Mama Grace's breath caught in her throat. "Daniel," she called, reaching for him, but he turned and walked away as if in a trance. The next morning, she ran to the witch doctor, her voice trembling. "Something is wrong. My son is slipping away from me." The old man stared at her, shaking his head. "You were warned. The spirits have turned against you. The curse has been reversed, and I can do anything about it." Mama Grace's heart pounded. "No, you have to fix this." The witch doctor sighed. "I cannot. You must prepare yourself. What you sent out is returning, and it will take everything from you. And I warned you if this is actually what you want, and now this is the consequences." A cold chill ran down Mama Grace's spine. For the first time, she felt true fear. "What have you done to me, Precious?" she said, as she was in a deep fear of thoughts Vexagories. As Mama Grace stepped out into the cold night, she turned back one last time. Her eyes burned with fury, her lips twisted in a sinister grin. "You will never be free from me," she hissed. Her voice was raw with rage, carrying through the wind like an omen. Then she vanished into the darkness. Daniel got himself back, as he was surprised if he had missed some days. Precious realized that she had already won. Daniel didn't remember much, but he knew he had offended Precious, his wife, but Precious understood and forgave him. Precious and Daniel didn't waste time. They visited Pastor Edmund one last time. After some pray, he looked at both of them. "The curse is gone," the Pastor Eddie murmured, "but the spirit, your mother's spirit, is cursed." Pastor Edmund said, "Daniel was in a grave pain. I trusted my mother, and she betrayed me just because of what?" Precious felt his pain and consoled him. Mama Grace was in deep pain and couldn't take the fear of the voices and whispers anymore. She made her way to her son's house, only to find her bags waiting for her outside. "Mother, go back to the village and live the rest of your life there. Now I see how wicked you are. You made my wife barren and made me your puppet to toy with. So that is not happening again, and you should be thankful I am not disowning you as my mother, all because of Precious's pleas for me to temper justice with mercy." Daniel said to her mother in anger, "Please, son, forgive me. I was blinded by hatred towards Precious that I lost it. I was never meant to harm you. Please forgive me, Mama Grace pleaded. But Daniel's decision was just and final. Mama Grace went back to the village, a broken woman. She felt like she had lost her son for her own selfishness, and now she would live the rest of her life regretting it. Months passed, and peace returned to their home. Then one morning, Precious held a pregnancy test in her trembling hands. Positive. Tears filled her eyes, tears of joy, of relief. The curse had been broken. She was finally free. 9 months later, Precious held her first child in her hands with her husband Daniel by her side, but lived in happiness and peace. The fight that took a lot from them gave them something to live for, a moment of peace as love. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share it with friends. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Bye.